Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another F.L.O.W Presents. This is the final episode in our financial series. After discussing general financial concepts, talking about love and money, looking at ways of how to become financially independent and investing, we are rounding this out by having an amazing panel discussion today about Black entrepreneurship. We are really excited to have the diverse group of entrepreneurs that we have here with us today. So without further ado, I just want to go ahead and get started here with, we'll start with Lindsay. Please remember to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Lindsay. I am the business owner of Alexander Recruiting, and it's a small boutique firm that offers career coaching, resume writing, as well as recruiting.
Great, thanks. Gwen Marie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gwen Marie Davis Hicks, and I am the managing partner at GDH Law. We're located in Lanham, Maryland. So happy to be here, and this is going to be a fun and interesting panel. Thanks for having me.
Great. We'll go to Michelle and Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and
I'm Jonathan.
And we are the owners of Miche Beauty, which is a handmade hair care brand that makes natural and simple products that work for curly hair. And we are happy to be here as well.
Ditto.
Thanks. We're going to go to Simone Spence Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Simone Spence Johnson, and this is
Nelson.
All right, and we're the owners of Blue Ember Concepts Limited, and that's located in the central parish of Manchester in Jamaica. And we are a advertising and a marketing firm, and we focus primarily on what we call, or we have coined, the 4Ds, which is design, display, digital, decor. Did I miss anything? Right, those are the 4Ds.
That's it, ditto.
You follow it. Yeah, and we're excited to be here.
Excellent. Marcia and Marlene.
Hi, I'm Marlene Morris, Marcia Morris, and we are the owners of Agile Office. We are an office furniture and office supply company based in Greenbelt, Maryland. Add anything to that?
That sums it up.
Okay. Then we'll go to Brent.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brent Simpson. I am the owner of a few companies, just two of which of importance would be Bold Vision Enterprise. We are really a small business consulting firm, and our purpose is to bring corporate level solutions to small businesses. I also have a company called Investing Education Academy, and that is to lessen the gap of the wealth gap between Black America and white America using the stock market. So it's a lot of us that don't invest in the stock market. So we're really trying to push literacy because really Black wealth has just caught up to white wealth as it was in 1962.
Wow. All right, we'll round it out with Shalyn. Oh,
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Sorry about that. My name is Shalyn Thomas. I am the partner at Thomas & Winter Research and Development. And we have small patents and products. So most notably the TW Tote and also the Journey bag line, which is a brand specifically for Black fathers.
Okay, great. I'm loving the diversity on this panel, from a law firm to hair care to recruiting, office, investing, totes for fathers. I think this is great and amazing. I'm super excited to have you all here with us today. All right, so I just want to kind of jump in, and I'm going to start with this kind of opener question. I've read several articles and I've heard people say that supporting Black entrepreneurs is a matter of social impact and charity rather than good business sense. So how, as Black entrepreneurs, are you debunking this myth and just allowing you guys to be seen as entrepreneurs in comparison to your other white counterparts? I'll start with Shalyn.
I'd say the first thing is to differentiate, right? A lot of people have specific things they expect from Black businesses. They assume, unfortunately, they assume that your customer service isn't going to be good. They assume that products are going to take forever to come out. And these are some of the things that you need to hone to change how people look and how they think about your business, because they're going to have preconceptions, unfortunately. And those are just some of the things you need to focus and emphasize on to change the mind of potential customers.
Great. Brent, I'm going to pass this on over to you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, first, I mean, I'm always a fan of understanding the source and what caused the source to think that. And then also looking at the reality that a lot of Black businesses, we have limited resources. We don't have access to capital like some of the traditional white institutions or, you know, a lot of bigger companies. It's a false thought that we provide a lesser product or that it's charity, but understanding the source and why they thought that really can help us kind of go to them with information and say, you know what, certain things may happen, like we may have a longer shipping date because we can't get products, you know, as easily as someone else. But at the same time, let them know if you, expectation management, I'll put it that way. I think that's the best thing we can do. Have expectation management about who we are, what we do. It helps out a lot.
Okay, Gwen Marie?
I was going to agree with that. I think it's good upfront, you know, with your clients, you know, and to set expectations of what to expect. But at the same time, too, you know, I was thinking about this very question. I think it could also be our own personal mindset. Sometimes I believe that sometimes we're harder on our own than we can be with other people that don't look like us. I've seen that time and time again. And oftentimes, too, if things don't go well with a Black-owned business, we're quick to say, I try to support this Black-owned business, but X, Y, and Z. But if the same thing happened to someone who didn't look like us, but you don't typically hear, I try to support this type of business. You just try a different law firm, or you try a different, you know, product or something like that. So I think that sometimes I believe that we are harder, and it comes from years and years and years of mental, you know, we're just coming back from, it's a whole different conversation, but I just think that it's just something that has to be learned. And if you don't like the product, communicate and give people the opportunity to make it better. And I believe that you will get better care. Articles came out this week stating essentially like sometimes people, people have like mothers who have given births to babies essentially who had a Black doctor had better care. So, you know, just something, the care that you get and the service that you get is, I believe, bar none when you support our own.
Great. Lindsay, I saw you shaking your head a lot. Do you have something to add to that?
I do agree, and I've heard that so many times. We will, for instance, not to name drop a major brand, but like a major coffee store. One time I went through the drive-thru and they didn't have like my favorite coffee, and they always have it, but they didn't have it at that time. If it was a Black-owned business, a lot of times people would have been upset, going online, doing reviews. I mean, and you know, but we always go back. We always go back to that drive-through. So I do agree with what Gwen said, but I also feel like to add to that, we just need to just focus on the things that will drive our business forward. You know, there's myths out there. People are going to say, oh, the Black-owned business, like one person said, customer service, just try to be better. Just have great customer service, but also just spend time focusing on what your industry is, what you have to offer, and move forward, plan, and just maintain that mindset that I'm going to be successful regardless whether I am Black, Caucasian, any color.
Thanks. Simone Spence?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all you guys. Our perspective is a little bit.
It seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so we'll come back to you all.
Different because in Jamaica, culture. Are you guys hearing me?
Yep, I think you're back. Go ahead.
Okay, right. So culturally here in Jamaica, it's not so much about being Black or having a Black-owned business. It's more about the class. Where do you fall in terms of your class and your caste?
Oh, All right, so we'll come back.
Where are you in terms of the position in the island? Because we're
All right, so we'll circle back to you guys. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty here. Michelle and Jonathan, as you guys are entering into kind of the, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry with hair care products, and traditionally have been led by big companies like Procter and Gamble and Unilever, that own brands like Pantene and other such. How have you guys kind of seen this, and how are you debunking this with your products?
I think it's really important to kind of control the narrative and the conversation. I see this happening in a couple of ways. One, you set expectations. So where I think a lot of businesses fail, and it's not just Black businesses, is over-promising, under-delivering. If you say you're going to do something, do what you said you're going to do. That's what leads to your business being trusted. So, for example, when you talk about customer service, I'll just give a few examples from our business. We try and have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround in getting our products. And if we are not able to do that, we will notify you immediately. We have a whole flow of emails that keeps you up to date on exactly what's going on with your purchase, your shipment, so on and so forth. So we actually are rated as having some of the best customer service that you'll find. But I think that doesn't have so much to do with being Black. I think it is more about putting systems in place and doing what you say you're going to do. And I just think a lot of times it's about us controlling our own narrative. Plenty of other examples, but I won't take too much time.
Okay. Simone, I think you guys are back. Do you guys want to jump back in there?
right. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, here in Jamaica, we do, yes, it's about Black-owned businesses, but the cultural mix comes into play as well. But I do agree. I think we need to look at our mindset, and we really, critique ourselves the hardest. And we really have to try and, just focus on the task at hand. If this is the service that you're offering, because we're in the service industry more so than a product. So for us, the turnaround time, the quality of the final product is what is essential with our clients. And we have clients all over the world, even though we're in Jamaica. So I really do think, we have to really position ourselves in that frame of mind to say, you have to focus on just being the best at what you're doing.
Yeah, basically that's it. If you believe in your product and you set yourself apart from mediocrity and all of that, you set a high standard on yourself. Others are going to see that in you, and they're going to be forced to want to do business with you, and that's the idea. You just have to maintain that standard and be confident about yourself and your product. That's it.
Great. And finally, Marcia and Marlene. Don't forget to unmute yourselves.
Sorry. We have two sides to our business, and one is as a contract furniture dealer for commercial and government and institutional clients, where we do projects that involve design and project management. And the other side of the business is office products. So we are an independent dealer that is competing with other larger independents, as well as Staples and Office Depot. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they do make the assumption that a smaller business, it's not just Black-owned business, but smaller businesses generally are not going to have the capacity. And then there are concerns with Black-owned businesses. And I think that it's key to, once you get in the door and you can convince someone to give you an opportunity, or you perform well on a solicitation, it is to sort of rise up and outperform or overperform. And because you will be held to a higher standard. It is a reality. If Staples doesn't make it next day, because we do next day desktop delivery on the office product side, then it's just a big company and with a lot to manage. But if a small company, especially a Black-owned company, were to miss a delivery, then that's why they missed, because they're small, they can't handle it. They're a Black-owned company, they must not have as structured a protocol. So it's a challenge, but I think the other thing too is differentiating ourselves in a positive way, so that we highlight areas where we maybe can provide better, more intimate service to our clients.
That's great. So I'm hearing a lot of, kind of setting expectations and just holding yourselves to higher standards in general. So just kind of doing that, but taking a step back, as I said before in the beginning, I really just want this to be an open discussion about, how you all became to be successful entrepreneurs and where you are today. So this is just kind of open up, and whoever wants to go with it, if they just want to talk a little bit about their journey and, where they started from, what they were doing before, and kind of what pushed them and led them to really, stepping out on your own to start your own business. So anybody want to kind of just jump in there and tackle that?
Sure.
All right.
So it was a couple of years ago, maybe about 7, 8 years now. It's been a while. But I was actually having some lunch with my current partner, and we had finished our work day. We work 9 to 5 for large companies, career wise. And, I'm sitting there saying, wow, I looked at my retirement today and they're saying it won't mature until like 2050 or some crazy number that I can't even fathom right now. And as hard as I had worked that day, I was like, I don't see myself working for someone else until 2050 while they go off and have fun and, enjoy life on their yacht. And I'm just in this office 9 to 5. At the time, I was being mentored by my CEO, and this is a $2 billion company. And the CEO was leaving at lunchtime to go play golf with the other executives, because that's where deals are made at higher levels. And here I am working all day. He's going to make $2 million this year and go for lunch and, hit a couple balls and probably head home. And I realized that if I just took a chance at building something myself, I might not be a $2 billion company, but I might reach the place where I'm comfortable enough to say, hey, you guys got it. I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to spend the rest of my day how I want to spend it. So that's really where my journey started. I didn't start with this super intention in mind of, I know exactly what I want to do, how I'm going to do it. I just knew what my end goal was, and that was freedom to live a lifestyle that I want and not have to worry about the paycheck.
That's awesome. I love that. I can co-sign with that. In the industry that I work in, the deals are made on the golf course, and I don't play golf. So I'm like, well, can we do a spa day instead? I can make some deals in the spa if I can meet some people. But yeah, that idea of being able to just have the flexibility to live the life and the lifestyle that you want to live. Brent, I saw you kind of smiling and co-signing as well. Do you want to jump in there and tell us about your journey?
Yeah. So I went to school for banking and finance, Bowie State University, HBCU. There you go. So, I came out of school. It's 2001. As soon as I came out of school, I got my Securities 7 license, which gave me the ability to trade stock. So I am old enough that I actually wrote stock tickets. And so when I was doing it, it was cool, but I realized the higher up I got, there weren't many minorities at the level I was starting to reach. And so I went through a really bad point in my life. So my cousin told me I can come work for him. Now, Shalon, this is where I'm gonna relate to you. That's why I was smiling. My cousin's a triathlete, and he's always training. So the company, when I got there, we were doing $130,000 a year in his basement. And this guy would break out to go ride his bicycle like 100 miles and then come back like at the close of the business, like, how do we do today? And so at one point, I made him $267,000 in 2 days. And when he got back, I had everything laid out, all the approvals, everything was done. He just had to send an invoice. He said, good job. And I was like, well, I'm gonna have a car after this, right? So he was like, you've always been good at business development. That's why I hired you. You work for that purpose. And I went back and I was like, my gosh, he's right. Like this is what he hired me for. And I was like, well, okay. So that part went on and it stuck. It just kept echoing in my head. We went to 5 million a year, 7 million a year, 8 million, 9, 10. We got to 14.6 million a year. And he said, oh, I'm gonna give you equity in the vice presidency in the company. I was so insulted. It hurt my soul that he made that offer to me. It devastated me. And I was like, you know what? If I could build this for you, not only can I build it for myself, but I could build it for others. And so that's when I was like, I might not get to 14.6, but I at least need to, do it on my own. And shout out to my cousin. He just turned 50 today and he did his 100-mile bike ride. The company's doing 35 million a year, Black owned, and I still consult them. But it was that moment, Shalin, where I was like, I can't do this while you're out riding your bicycle. And for triathletes, if you all know, the average salary for a triathlete is over 170,000 a year. So the average person you see biking, running, so forth, they make well into 6 figures. So that's where their golf course was. So, I don't play golf. So it was that moment where I was like, okay, I need to do it for myself. And that's when I left. Oh, you know what? And Gwen, real quick, I was the financial expert for estate planning attorneys. And there's an estate planning attorney locally in Maryland. And I would sit in and make sure I answer questions on finance when the attorney couldn't handle that finance part of it. And so one day she asked me to lead a business development meeting. And I was like, oh, you want me to talk about life insurance? And she said, no, I want you to talk about business development. I said, I don't do that. She said, have you ever heard yourself talk? I've never heard you start speaking and not try to make somebody's business better. And after that meeting, that one meeting with 9 attorneys, which freaked me out beyond belief, I quit everything, started doing business development. She was my first client. She's still my client today.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm hoping some connections can be made here for businesses, supporting one another and pushing things forward. So that's awesome. Michelle and Jonathan, you guys want to talk a little bit about your journey?
Yes. So for me, well, I think for both of us, we've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and we've had, many different businesses that we even started together, from like catering, food, and we, I can't remember what else we had besides that, but I know we had a couple of things. So, I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I actually was, in line to go to dental school. And I was like, I'm going to go to dental school, but when I graduate, I'm going to open a dental spa where people are going to come in, I'm going to own it. And, that was my track of what I was trying to do. And then, I've always had a passion for like beauty and science. And I was like, I want to put these two together. And so it kind of, for Mish Beauty, it really got started from my passion with both of those things. And then, Jonathan's passion of, he's an attorney, he could speak on that. But I don't know if you want to add to that. As far as your part.
Yeah, for me, my parents own their own business. Even when I was an undergrad, I knew this is always where I wanted to end up. Through law school, it was always the game plan. And I think really to be truthful, not even to try and sound eloquent, my wife and I, we're not good employees. We're not really employable people. Like if we just cut to the chase, we like to run things. We like to do it our own way. We work much harder for ourselves than we're able to work for other people. I think it's a personality. It's honestly not for everyone. Truth be told, entrepreneurs will work 100 hours a week to avoid working 40 for someone else. Yeah. And honestly, I just think as far as Mish Beauty is concerned, at the very core of it, we didn't like working for other people. It didn't really have to do with the money or anything. I think we'd rather sleep under a bridge working for ourselves than work for others.
And also to add to that, the flexibility, I think, even with having small kids, and they're in the back here, but with having them, just having the flexibility, if I need to take them to an appointment or they're sick, I'm there for them. And it was just really hard to do that with a 9 to 5. Even though we work much harder now and many more hours, it is still flexible, which I wanted that quality of life. And so, yeah.
Gwen, I see. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll just jump right in. For me, it's was been ingrained in me since I was a small kid. I remember the first business that I started. I was probably like 6 years old, and my mom had us open a candy store on the corner of our street. We were selling candy, Twix, you name it. We went to Costco, Sam's Club at the time, I think it was, and she bought stuff for us. And then we went out selling the candy, made some money, made sure we had to fix our prices so that we made a profit. And then we got so excited, we had some money, then we went home and ate all our candy that evening. One of the first lessons I learned, you can't eat your profit. Then after that, we moved from that neighborhood and went to live behind a golf course. And that's when I really got into entrepreneurship, because I had a business where we could find golf balls. And guess how much the golf balls cost to find? $0. It was all sweat. And we would go find the golf balls. Jonathan, I think you found a couple before with me. And we went and cleaned the golf balls on the golf course and sold them for 50 cents a piece. Golf balls for sale, 50 cents a piece. And we just figured out times, dates, and to make money. And we would take the whole egg carton, fill them up, self packages, and the whole 9 yards. Here I am today, years later. I always knew I wanted to be a layer. I couldn't spell it properly, but it was called a layer. So when I grew up, I started my own law firm. We do business law and personal injury. So go figure, I help businesses because I love working with businesses. I love the entrepreneurship. It's just in my blood ever since I was small. So it's just what I do. It's what I love. And I like helping people and just doing what I do. And don't worry about the money. If you do a good job, the money's going to come. And that's kind of how it's been for me. I love what I do. Stressful days, you work a lot, you work harder, but the flexibility, like Michelle said, I have a family as well too, is huge. You might make it up on the back end, but you're able to be flexible, which is a great thing.
I love that. So since birth, since day one, you're like, I'm doing this on my own. I'm going to do my own thing. And, you know, you've had kind of businesses along the way that set you up for being the successful lawyer that you are today, which is great. So I've heard a number of you talk about family but also flexibility. And even though you work harder for yourselves because you're ultimately responsible for putting that food on the table, but you have been able to kind of manage that work-life balance as your own entrepreneur. So I want to kind of just touch on that a little bit. If the other panelists want to talk about what has been their, I don't know, struggle or what has been the way in which they've managed to balance life and starting your own business or growing your business to make it successful, and how has that, and what have you done in order to do that? Lindsay, I see your hand.
Yeah, so sure. And one thing that you said is like, just, be transparent, and that's wonderful. I'm married. I've been married for 14 years in December, and it's not just me. Like, I depend heavily on my husband to help me out. We have 2 kids. And so one of the reasons why I got started with Alexander Recruiting, just like everybody else, I've started a few businesses that were not so successful. And I got started with Alexander Recruiting. I was working, and my daughter has a developmental disability. She was in public school at the time, and I was constantly getting calls, and she was already in a special ed classroom, but I was constantly getting called at work to come and like redirect her. And there was IEP meetings, and it was becoming so overwhelming. And so that's when my husband and I made the decision, we're going to go ahead and pull her out and homeschool her. My son was going to GE Peters and thriving at GE Peters. And so we had to make a decision what was going to be beneficial for our family. So I wanted to also maintain my skills and my relevance, and that's how Alexander Recruiting was birthed. But really, it gave me the opportunity, or gave us the opportunity, to balance the work life. With me homeschooling her, getting her back on track, getting her the confidence academically again, and still being able to have the flexibility of working with clients, was just really, really beautiful. And so I will say it does take a team. It's not just the person with the name on the business. It does take a team. It takes a tribe to be able to balance that work life. And that's what really helped us.
Marcy and Marlene or Simone, do you guys want to jump in there?
Yeah, we'll just jump in right here. So a quick backstory. So we started our company a month before we got married. So the company and the marriage is almost the same age. So it's interesting because the whole balance thing, it really is, a balancing act on a daily basis. So we've been married, November coming, will be 9 years, and we have two kids. And it's been a blessing having our own business and being able to have our child there, because they start school at 3 here in Jamaica. So we were able to keep the first one at the office with us while we were juggling and everything with work. So I mean, it's been amazing that way. You want to jump in?
Mercy and Marlene, you guys want to jump in there?
Okay, so I'll speak on this. My career before we started this business was flexible in some different ways. So I was in academia, I was a college professor. So I had class days where I had to be there and there at a certain time, but then there were other days where I wasn't in the class, so it was flexible. I found that being an entrepreneur takes up much more time. So it requires time away from family. I have two kids that are 11 and 13. So it does take more time. It takes more kind of your energy and emotion and things like that. But at the same time, there's flexibility, like other people have said. If you have family responsibilities or obligations, you can go and you make your own schedule, and so you have that flexibility. The fact that we work together, and we have daughters who are the same age, so we have some of the same types of family obligations, and we can help each other out. And this one will pick up this one, and she can stay at your house until I get home. So it helps in that respect. But it's also been, I think, really important for my kids, since they're a little bit older. They get it. They see what we're doing. We have a business, and so it's been a really great example for them to see us owning and operating a business, and they'll say, how come you have to work so much more now, or how come you have to work every day, or can't you just stay at home since you own the company? But at the same time, they see what we're doing, and I think that they have a lot of respect for that, and I think that that's going to stick with them later on and kind of guide what they do.
That's great. I mean, go ahead, Shalon.
I was going to say, I don't think I've heard it yet, but if I'm just being transparent, when you start entrepreneurship, there is no such thing as work-life balance. When you're just getting started, you have to do everything. You're the financer, you're the marketer, you're the business person. You're wearing a million hats until you can scale. So I don't want anybody that hasn't gone that path yet to assume that you start on day one and immediately you have this balance where you can go do all these nice things that you want to do. You start to build that over time. Not only that, but you also have to time box. What do I mean by time box? You have to decide, listen, to get where I need to go, I need to work X amount of hours today, but I need to be able to build in time for family, friends, a mental health break, whatever it is. You have to time box yourself, because now as an entrepreneur, there's always something you could do. If you had 1 million hours in a day, you can fill each and every hour and still have more things to do. So time boxing is important. Lastly, I would say, as far as work-life balance, a lot of people here seem to be working with their friends, loved ones, significant other, and I'm in the same boat. One of my closest friends is also my business partner. So what ends up happening, sometimes you all will disagree, and disagreeing in a business is healthy. You'll disagree on something in business, and now it's time to turn business off because y'all just need to be friends, loved ones, family, whatever the case is. And it's hard to make that transition from, I'm still a little upset because you think my idea is stupid, to, all right, let's just kick it and watch a movie. Let's grab dinner, and sometimes you want to be snickety, like, yeah, but you shouldn't have shut my idea down. But you have to be able to make that hard transition. Because I know a lot of people, when they want to start a business, the first person they're looking for is their best friend. They're like, bro, homie, we should start a business. Girlfriend, we should start a business. Let me tell you, that could be one of the most difficult things you can do, because now you have to make that separation between this person's disagreeing with me. In our regular friendship, we never disagree, but all of a sudden we are, because business is different. So learn to time box. Make sure that you're setting aside time aside for yourself, your personal health, your friends, and your family. And then outside of that, understand that when you start, you probably aren't going to have a lot of balance. And lastly, whoever you're in partnership with, make sure that you check yourself. So if something goes wrong with the business, or y'all are beefing over business, it doesn't spill over into your actual relationship.
I feel like these are great, words of wisdom and nuggets, and it's important, because I think that's very true. A lot of people have, especially in this social media age where, every second there's like a new idea that's coming out, and how do I become an influencer, and let's jump in and do this business and that business. And it's true, businesses or any kind of relationship like that where you're really tied together, and as you said, having those disagreements could kind of make or break that relationship. And when you're doing it with your spouse or loved one, you have to have even, I think, stronger bonds in doing that. But a lot of you guys mentioned support and having the support of family and friends in order to be able to kind of realize your dreams and make that happen. Just kind of two questions here, and that is, one, what type of financial support did you all need or did you all look for in terms of starting your business? And then also, what have been some of the greatest challenges to really kind of taking that first leap and getting started? So I'm gonna go over to Brent.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I have a great story for that one. So financially, when I was offered the vice presidency with my cousin's company, I turned in my resignation, but I was like, I want you to fund whatever I do for a year, and I'm not gonna work. I just want to figure it out. And he agreed. And so I'm thinking I'm gonna have this great experience, right? I have money coming in, everything's good. In the last, I think not even a few months after that, I ended up having a surgery. And subsequently, I had 6 surgeries for the next 4 years. Like over the next 4 years, I had 6 surgeries. And so when I left to do my own thing, I ended up having no income, just relying on what was coming in from that time period. And every time I had a surgery, I was down for a certain period of time, which meant my wife had to take care of me. And she was pregnant at the time, and we were looking for a house and living in my mother's basement, because we thought, oh, we're just gonna sell the house, live in my mom's basement. Cash is coming in, I'm doing pretty well. We're just gonna, jump into the house we want when we find it. And then life happens. And so it goes back to, understanding when you're an entrepreneur that life happens. And so financially, and this is where it ties into financially, I had an intern that was working with me on the finance side when I was a financial advisor. He ended up having 3 brain surgeries during the time that he was working with me. September the 7th, 2017, never forget. It was the day I did the event for the attorney, decided I was leaving the industry. He was my go-to. We were going to do this together. He came to me on September 17th and said he had a headache. I took him to the hospital. He ended up needing a 3rd brain surgery. We had no money. I took out an equity line of credit to continue to pay his salary. I went $30,000 in debt, and it almost ruined my mindset. Not my business, but my mindset. And so the money, it's the backstory to it, and I respect the time, but I did start thinking, how am I going to fund the rest of this business? And so I just adopted the lean, like a 6 Sigma lean methodology. And I went real lean, cash heavy, and I led with services to then later do products.
Wow, I think that's great. It always reminds me of kind of that mantra that I heard from Les Brown, that was like a setback is a setup for a comeback. And it sounds like you kind of had the, more than even just the trifecta of everything, kind of, all of the dominoes just falling at one time. But as you said, it didn't change it changed your mindset. And so I guess you were able to shift and figure out how to use that setback to be able to come back even stronger with the businesses that you have now. Does anybody else want to speak to kind of, that of like what it took to start, some of the setbacks, and then also just kind of the financial side of things too for starting a business? Lindsay, I saw your hand. Don't forget to unmute.
Okay, so I would say if I could have gotten paid for as much as I dream or I dreamt, I would have a ton of money going into the business. I'm a dreamer. I keep a journal right next to my bed. If I wake up, I write down all my ideas for my business. Unlike a lot of businesses, I went into it with no money. Like I had all these great ideas of how great I was going to be and no money. And my husband was like, okay, how's that going to work out? So what we did, my husband, I have to give the credit. He got a second job. Like I said, I was home, joining a homeschool co-op and trying to get my daughter back on track. And he went and got a second job, so that way that money could go into Alexander Recruiting. And then I leveraged my network. I know some people are talking about spouses and family. My parents invested. They really believed in me, and they invested. My aunt, my best friend, they believed in me, but they didn't give tons of money. Now I don't come from money. We all have to work really, really. I just don't come from money. But they believed in me. They gave me an opportunity, and every single time that I got a client, I put that right back into the business. So that really helped us, get out there and be able to finance the business. But really, it goes a lot to my husband who got a second job.
That's awesome. Shalyn, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everybody earlier kind of alluded to it. The best way to go is to start lean. What does lean actually mean? It means like skinny. Like you have this big idea in your head. Usually you want to create a brand new car, but how are you going to get the funding to get there? Not only that, if you're a first-time entrepreneur, chances are you're not going to find somebody to give you a $500 million check to go build that car, right? You're going to start from the ground floor. So start lean by paring down your idea. If you only have X amount of dollars, you want to build that car, but you only got enough money to build the tires, learn how to build the tires. And as you build the tires and people start buying the tires, then you can build the rims. And what you'll see is over time, you will start to be able to form this car, but it's not with day one having everything all together so you can go and launch. And the biggest failure that I see is a lot of people that want to get into entrepreneurship. When I hear their idea, I'm like, where are you going to get the $2 or $3 million to do that? Because you don't have a proven track record. Nobody's going to just come in on day one and say, here's a small loan of $2 million. That's not going to happen, and it's not realistic. So my suggestion would be what I did. Start lean, start with whatever little you have. And I understand that that might not fund your big overarching idea, but you're better off if you got 2 pennies, figure out how to make those 2 pennies work. Another reason why you want to do that is even if you were lucky enough to find an investor on day one that wanted to give you X amount of dollars, let's say they want to give you $50,000 and they ask for a portion of your company. They're asking for that portion of your company up front. Trust me, as a first-time entrepreneur, $50,000 you're going to burn through in a day if you don't know what to do with it. Part of starting an entrepreneurship journey is messing up, but you're messing up with little amounts of money versus somebody handing you piles of cash, right? So you want to start with that small amount of money, make your little mistakes here and there so you actually know what to do when you get that money. Because when you reach the place that you're now making $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 a year, and you really do need to go and get investors, you don't want to tell the investors, well, I already gave away 50% of my company to the guys that gave me $10,000 4 or 5 years ago. You want to make sure you own as much of the company as possible when you absolutely have to go for investment money. So start small, start very lean. And if it's just making them tires, make them tires until the car comes together.
Nice, nice. Gwen, I saw you nodding your head. You want to jump in there?
Sure. Yes, he's saying a lot of great things. One of the things I just say too, when you start your business and money starts flowing in, just invest, pay yourself and invest everything back into your business. So it's important because it's your business, and you'll see your profits, if you invest what you make back into your business, if you're doing it right, it will double and double, and each year you should see growth within your business. But that's important, and also paying attention to where you're throwing your money into your business and paying close attention to your return on your investments when you do invest in your business, so that you could see what's working, what's not working, and tweak it. And being able to be flexible, so when things hit, you're able to tweak it as well too, and make that setback actually something that can really propel your business even further. For example, what's coming to my mind is this year, no one expected COVID-19 to hit. For me, the courts completely shut down. And still, I don't know when a jury trial is going to happen. They're saying in some courts, maybe October, but I don't think it's going to happen for this year. I can't imagine it. Could you imagine a jury looking at me in a jury box in October doing a trial? They're going to be so mad. Like, what kind of trial is this happening right now in the middle of a pandemic? So with that said, being able to prepare for that, what are we going to do? How are you going to survive that? Just planning to overcome all obstacles. You got to sit back and go back to the drawing board and find ways, pick up different practice areas, things like that, to make sure that your business continues to thrive, not only survive, but it can actually thrive during a pandemic. So for me, that's when we just kind of going restructuring some things and figuring out what can work. And as I talk to other businesses that have been panicking during this time period, don't panic, just plan. And I believe that, you could be fine. So.
Yeah. Nice. So I kind of want to touch a little bit on, Gwen, what you said about the pandemic, but then also kind of to Marcia and Marlene. You all have been in business, it seems like, for probably over a decade or so. So you're pretty well seasoned, but also in an industry that is always in flux and is changing. I understand kind of the corporate furniture scene well, doing construction management. So I guess my question for you all is, how, when you started in this industry and in your business, did you look at growing, and what strategies did you have in place, and what advice would you give to businesses in terms of setting that kind of growth mindset? And then also, how have you seen things change because of COVID-19?
So I wanted to touch on something that's relative to our story that we haven't touched on here. So, and I know Brent and Gwen, you guys come in contact with entrepreneurs and provide services to them. If anybody has friends who are second generation in a business, in a Black business, I would say just nudge them a little to think about transition planning and succession planning. Our story is this: our family started a business in 1984. My dad had a whole career in political science and as a professor. My mom had worked at the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund for years and years and years, and they decided sort of later midlife to start a business. And they did. They bought a small failing office products company. And both of us worked some in the business during college, and then I worked in the business after that. There's all kinds of stories and journey that went along with that. Marlene went to do her graduate work and become a professor. And I took a break and went to law school, and then did some entertainment law in Los Angeles, and came back, decided I wanted to rejoin the family business. And my dad, my parents, but my dad mostly kept talking about us taking over the business, over the company. And we planned for that. Marlene, after a lot of deliberation, left her job and came into the business. And I didn't know how she was going to manage giving up those summers that I used to be really jealous of. And my daughter wanted to know, why can't we be at the pool all day in the summertime? You're still at work. Marlene's out. So we did that. And we were trying to transition for over 2 years. And he couldn't do it. And it was very, very, very difficult. And I think that, and what we ultimately did was, I had developed about half of our book of business in Maryland, and the business, the company was located in DC. So my offices and I had a staff in Maryland, and my mom, after a torturous, maybe 12, 18 months, my mom kind of intervened and said, okay, look, let's partition this. You take your piece of business and the people in it, and you guys go do that, and we'll just move on. So so rather than continuing a company, we basically had to start from scratch, which all of you guys know, everything from getting your own EIN and doing your own branding, starting up all of the payroll and everything from scratch. So it added a little bit to that. Yeah. And so it was a new business, but with some clients who were pretty significant and were used to a certain level of performance that we had to not only maintain, but improve. And we had just gotten, Marlene had gotten us into a great position, and we landed the contract for WSSC. We had contracts with county agencies. I have a contract out of Tennessee with a Fortune 500 company. And it was just, it was really challenging, because now you're starting, but you're starting with a full book of business with people with a lot of expectations, and we were definitely self-funded. So that part, we're right there. We were right there. But I think that the succession issue is really big, and I think it's really big for, especially big for Black businesses.
So I want to kind of take that and send that over to Michelle and Jonathan. You guys have your kids in the back, so they're watching firsthand how you run your business, how things are going. Have you thought anything about, is that part of your plan, your strategy is to hand this over to them one day, in the future? Or?
So I'm gonna answer that from my own life story. My parents had a business. None of us wanted anything to do with it. So that business now no longer exists. Okay. I think, albeit that was a nonprofit, so it's a little different. We're in business for profit. But I think I wouldn't push my kids to do anything, right? Because, sometimes similar in the Bible, right? You'd see the mantle of a prophet. It didn't always go to the son. It'll be something that we definitely are planning to build to make sure it's on a strong footing and foundation and very profitable. And if we don't sell it before they're of age and they're interested, wonderful. If not, we'll sell it. That's it.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about kind of like what is your overall vision and kind of growth strategy, and how you see, Miche Beauty taking off?
Sure. Okay, so we are mainly online. Our products are sold in stores overseas, a lot in Europe, the UK, throughout the Caribbean. But in the US, we've turned down a lot of offers from your favorite major retailers where you shop for a number of reasons, but the simplest one really being margins. And so we've seen that in our line of business, when we market very heavily, whether it be social media or otherwise, it drives traffic. And so we'd rather just drive that traffic to our own website. We have our own manufacturing facility. We do everything in-house. We have our own labs. We formulate. So we really just want to be a one-stop shop and just continue to grow and scale. I think at this point, we started in a kitchen, then we got one warehouse. Now our warehouse is about 7,000 square feet. You just keep pushing, staying with the fundamentals and growing. If I were to give any advice, rather than trying to focus on kind of all of the different ins and outs of various businesses, I would suggest to any entrepreneur, learn your business. I'm a lawyer by training, and when you go to law school, you learn something that I'm not sure you know going in. There are a lot of different practice areas. I think the same thing for medicine, right? When someone says they're a doctor, well, what kind of doctor are you, right? So if someone tells you they're an entrepreneur, you know, what is it that you do? I think for anyone who's interested in entrepreneurship, learn your business and you'll learn what scaling looks like in your business. So, you know, when we were having meetings, flying out across the country to meet with these large retailers, we started crunching the numbers and realizing we will be far more profitable not being in your store. And so I'm not going to say who, but in my email right now, there's a very large retailer who I've just left on red. We're not going to do it. And I think that's just because we know our numbers, because we've learned our business. So for anyone, it's important that you really spend the time, learn your business, learn your craft, and realize what scaling will look like in your industry. Because sometimes it's not always what you think. You can go into all the stores and wind up making far less money, having far more headache, having far more red tape, and just burn yourself out. It's often called the Walmart effect, where you actually will go into a retailer and that will lead to you going out of business. So just to answer your scaling question, I would say across the board, whether you have a law firm or whether you sell a product or a service, just take a look at your industry and know what scaling for you should be, and what ultimately for me is, it's a bottom line, it's profitability. I want to do whatever is going to ultimately lead us to being the most profitable company. So that would be my suggestion. We're just scaling online.
I think that's great. I think you've, summed up a lot of good things, because there was a couple of questions from the YouTube chat asking about, what's the best way to go into business that you're new to? And I think you really answered that question about just knowing the industry, know what industry it is that you want to get into, and kind of how best to handle that and what that growth strategy looks like for you and your business. And as you said, I think sometimes the dream is to be able to see your product on the shelf of every single, major retailer or grocery store, but that could lead to, as you said, more headaches and hassles, and even put you out of business and taking you away from kind of the core of what you decided to start with. So I think having some of that in the back of your mind is very good. I just want to go to another question here from YouTube chat, and it says, how much of your business do you give to your business while you're still working for somebody else? So I don't know if anybody wants to talk about kind of when they were in the beginning stages of starting their business, how much of their time and energy did you all dedicate and focus on getting your business started? Jonathan?
Oh yeah, well, I just want to jump in because
Joe.
Started, we were both still working. We started our business in 2016, officially launched, and I was working my 9 to 5 and Jonathan was working his as well. And while I was there, I mean, it was hard to balance because, you still have to do work at your 9 to 5. So I would be there, all day, and then I would come home. We would work on it till 2, 3 a.m. sometimes.
Pause. That's a true story. For anyone, like Shalyn said earlier, for real, yeah. We would work at least 8 hours for other people, then come home and follow that up. No sleep, gray hair, hairline receded, and that's real. I'm telling you now, we're in a place financially that is good, but
it did take a while.
It took work.
Yeah, and you know, every year I was like, I'm gonna quit my job, but I knew that I needed that job to fund not only our family but also the business as well. And so, you know, I would say it just takes a real commitment, like dedication, just knowing that if you put in the work now, it will pay off. And it took 3 years. I quit my job last April of 2019. So it's only been or a little over a year of just full-time entrepreneurship. But definitely it's a lot of work just doing both, but I think it is necessary.
So one other statement with that. I think the biggest thing is you have to make a decision. I think a lot of people waver terribly, even in the Bible. It's something that irritates God to no end. Laodicea, wavering here on this side, here on that side. Once you make that decision, make it for real. You'll need to fund your business. You'll need to work for someone else for some time. Cool, but work for yourself and set that, like, I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna build this. So over time, it's slowly built. But then you will hit that stride when things start taking off. People recognize who you are. All of a sudden, you went from not paying yourself to paying yourself well. And, you know, I just think just before you get that golden pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you have to appreciate that, you know, no matter what comes, come hell, come high water, I am going to work my behind off for myself. And that.
I think that's great. I just want to take a little liberty here as the moderator, because I know your story a little bit. Michelle, if you can kind of talk about how you started with, you know, the YouTube videos and then transitioning into where you are now, because I know that there's a lot of people that are watching, and some people that are, you know, they started their YouTube page and they're doing, you know, vlogs about various things, hair, makeup, all of that, and looking to probably, you know, potentially emulate and get to where you are. So can you talk, you know, quick minute about that kind of journey and that setup?
Yeah, so I started
technology that you use too to help you kind of do that.
Yeah, so I started YouTube. I started a YouTube channel in 2012, and my goal then was just to kind of document my journey of like taking care of my hair. And I had no like plan to make this something at that point. I just wanted to document the journey. And as I was documenting, I was doing a lot of research, and I was like, wow, people are actually coming to me with their hair questions as I'm figuring it out, and you know, they want to know more from me. So it was basically just, you know, as they were coming to me, I started coming up with solutions for them. Like their hair was really dry, and so I was like, okay, we're all going through this. Let me start making some products, which was way down the line, 2015, when we started formulating the products. But I definitely used YouTube as a marketing tool, which was great in the beginning, and I didn't get paid or anything at all off YouTube. It was just out of my passion of doing it. And so to this day now, I can always use my audience on YouTube and, you know, sell our products and do all that. But yeah, so it started way before I even knew it was going to start.
Nice. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I just have, before we kind of look into transitioning into the overflow, if there's anybody that wants to join, where they can ask questions directly to the panelists. Brent, I have a question for you. You mentioned that one of your businesses is about helping to bridge the gap financially between, you know, the Black community and everybody else by leveraging certain information. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you are marketing, or how you're finding clients to be able to utilize these services? Because that is a big thing, and a big question within the Black community is, you know, the disparities that are there, and how do we get to that level where we feel comfortable enough of starting our own business if we don't have any money, or just kind of stepping out on our own, but then also just having a little bit of that financial savvy and awareness to do some of that.
Yeah, so one of the things is, I guess similar to Michelle, and I'll go back to 2017, right? I was watching a Gary Vee video on YouTube, and you know, Gary Vee, if anybody watching Gary Vaynerchuk, he's very raw with what he says. But one of the things he said was like, you all have to utilize these platforms. Like you can do Facebook Live, you can do YouTube. And he was like, get on there, make sure people know who you are. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so, you know, I watched it, went to sleep, woke up next day, saw it again. And I used to always watch those videos. So one day he used choice words and said, essentially, if you keep sitting there watching me win, you're probably losing. And I was like, well, that's not gonna happen. And I went to my office and I started doing live videos, and I had no idea why I was doing it. But one thing I always knew, the person that had the people wins. It doesn't matter what business you are in, whoever's watching this is an absolute fact. The person who has the people wins. It doesn't matter if you're selling chamois, it doesn't matter if you're selling like oatmeal. If people follow you and you start to sell it and they like, no, trust you, they'll buy it. And so that bled into finance. And so when I was 15, I started investing similarly to Gwen, going out buying candy from Costco and reselling it. I was making about $50 a day in high school. So then I started contracting other people who ran track to sell at different places for me. I took a model some of my family used and applied it to candy. And so I was making $250 like a week and, you know, having these people sell candy for us. But where I flipped it was, I was like, I have to own everything I do. So I actually bought stock when Costco just made the name change from Price Club. And so I bought Costco in 1994 was when I bought the stock. And so, you know, I started looking at the things I did. Like I got a Lexus, so I bought Toyota. And so I refused to do anything I didn't own part of. And so for anybody watching, I think we move as consumers too much. And you say, how do you narrow that wealth gap? One of the biggest issues that contributes to the wealth gap is the financial literacy gap and the ROI gap. And I heard people talk about ROI. Right now, African-Americans, by and large, receive 139% less interest on their money per year than other individuals. Because we have our money in bank accounts, we have our money in CDs, we have our money in bonds. And the big three pillars are going to be entrepreneurship, investing in the markets, or other investments in real estate. That's where you're going to win. And so many people who go into a bank and these bank managers, they're like, oh, here's safety. You know, if this is safe, you put your money in the bank. And the reality is, if you're putting your money into a bank, you're talking 1% to 3% interest. I don't care really what the product is. That's where you're landing. It's going to take you between 72 and about 30 years for your money to double. So whoever's watching this, say your name to yourself and then whisper 36 and do the math. Add 36, whatever your name is, I mean, your number, your age is, and then that number of years that you think your money is going to double. And so if it's longer than your life expectancy, you're failing. And so it's very simple. I mean, the market is a great equalizer. And, you know, one of the things about the market, no one knows if you're black, white, Chinese, or anything else. You know, when you hit buy button now, because it's all computerized, you really can't be discriminated against. You know, as entrepreneurs, we can still sometimes have a difficult meeting. We can still be judged. When selling real estate, somebody can say, well, I don't want to buy in this neighborhood. I don't want to buy from you. It doesn't happen as much as it probably did when our parents were coming up, but it can happen. With the market, you know, it was a time when you couldn't walk into Wall Street and just say, I wanted to trade because it was a closed group. It actually was, it was a good old boys club. You couldn't get in. And so now, yeah, you can open an E-Trade account, you can make a trade, and you don't have to do a financial analysis, run Monte Carlo reports, allocation models. It doesn't have to happen. What do you wear? What of the things that you wear have people been wearing since you were in high school? I used to have young girls on basketball teams, like to speak to them, buying Nike. And one girl called me one time and made my heart like explode. She was like, Mr. Simpson, we're about to play a game. I just wanted to let you know the whole team has on Nikes. They kind of work for me. I was like, I won. I was like, I did my job in life. So, you know, it was so cool, but she saw herself as an owner and she was 15, you know? And we think we have to teach kids a technical way to go about business. But if you really know your trade, you could teach it to a third grader. And so that's how I pride myself. I can teach anybody about finances. And even when I met my wife, I was like, we can't have a savings account. Like, only thing we can have a savings account for is emergency fund. That is it. And she was like, but I saved, she's chemistry major. She's real technical. She was like, I'm not gambling. One of our stocks, we bought Tesla when we first started dating 9 years ago. She's up 1,649% on Tesla. And that doesn't happen in other places. And she's really glad she married me now. So that's how the way we attack or narrow the wealth gap is by looking at the ROI gap and also looking at the financial literacy gap.
So it sounds like you made some very, very smart investments very early on that have been, paying dividends for you. So congratulations on that. Definitely looking for you to share that information with the rest of us so that we can, have our Tesla and Amazon stocks, whatever those companies are now that we can potentially afford that will go up 1,000%, in the next couple of years. Definitely looking to invest in that. But Lindsay, I wanted to ask you, being specifically in kind of the recruiting industry and, in this time period with COVID, where a lot of people have been laid off because of different things, how have you seen your industry shift and what have you been doing to kind of bridge that gap during this pandemic period?
So yes, a lot of people have been laid off. And one thing, it was kind of hard. Clients weren't looking to hire, they were actually looking to lay off. So when I started Alexander Recruiting, one thing that I wanted to do to differentiate myself, I see a lot of recruiters have their own company. I see a lot of career coaches have their own company. And then I see resume writers have their own company. I haven't, and one thing that I'm looking at the name Jonathan and Michelle said is know your industry. And so I really spent a lot of time studying my industry. And so I wanted to be able to make sure that I could always find ways to supplement my income. So even though recruiting, even a lot of my colleagues that are recruiters were even laid off, I found other ways to utilize Alexander Recruiting by career coaching. So I tapped into that, resume writing. So during COVID, it actually, business was really good, honestly, during COVID, because people were revamping their resumes. Learning job development. It's starting to pick up now, but being that I had those two other businesses and put them all together in one, I was still able to have income coming in.
I think that's great. So you mentioned not only, for yourself in terms of the diversity that you bring to your own work, but being able to hopefully translate that with the clients that you work with so that when they are going back out and looking at the workforce again, they're able to leverage sometimes other skills that they hadn't really thought about and how that can play a role in whatever position it is that they're looking for.
Absolutely. Even some of my clients that normally would utilize my recruiting services, I tapped into them and said, well, I know that you may possibly be laying some people off. How about giving them some career development and resume writing services? And you'd be surprised, a lot of companies invested in the people that they were laying off because, they were like, important to them. They didn't want to lay them off, but because of COVID, they had to. So they found other ways to invest in those employees that they had to lay off through resume writing and career coaching.
Wow. Shalon, how have you been able to kind of take this time for your businesses?
Well, you got to qualify that a little bit for me. Do you mean the time of like COVID?
Yeah, the time of COVID, and then also just kind of, looking at in general, it seems like you talked about, I think you said you have two businesses. One is the tote bag, and then the other one is specific to fathers. I guess, how did you figure out a way to kind of, to have these two differential things that are, I believe that they're related, but they're still their own separate entities as well.
Yeah, definitely. So my company is Thomas & Winter Research and Development, and that's the top umbrella. And then underneath that, we have, specific products and whatever the case is. And I would say our flagship product was TW Tote, which is, luxury lunch boxes. And, focusing on the quality and experience around that allowed us to meet people that we could partner with to go after other opportunities. And that's how Journey was born. So one of the things I would say is people always underestimate, like those little small farmers markets and, small startup business tables and all of those kind of activities. And the craziest thing is those things are really important because you're going to quickly kind of understand who your target market is. You're going to understand unbiased questions from people who don't know anything about you, don't care, and they're just curious about your product. And you know, it was in doing stuff like that and making sure we present ourselves well that we bounced into somebody that was like, oh wow, these products are great. You know what? I need to introduce you to a associate of mine. That associate ended up being someone who interviewed Obama, who's worked for the NBA, who's worked for the NFL, and then became one of our partners because he was into fatherhood. He's known for fatherhood in the Black community, especially with celebrities and stuff like that, and was like, hey, I like what you guys are doing here. How can we, do this specifically for dads? And that's how Journey was born. But it was out of, that humbling experience of, hey, let's just go to the farmer's market and try and sell some of our products. And it wasn't really about selling the products at that point. It was about connecting with people and, listening to what they have to say and trying to sell what we had to them, whether or not they took it or not. And it led to this whole other stream, this whole other industry that now, I see the value in because it's virtually untapped. There really isn't any kind of apparel specifically for Black dads. Not only that, but where Black dads can confide in each other, because it's not just going to be about products. It's also going to be about learning. Okay, as a first-time dad, how do you change a diaper? You know how mommy does it, but how do guys do it? What's the slick way that other Black men are doing it and stuff like that. So I would say use every opportunity you can and be humble with it. In some cases it's not some big convention that you have to set up a table at. Sometimes it's your apartment building that says, hey, we're doing the small businesses downstairs, come set up a table, because you just never know what connections you're going to make anywhere at any time. Specifically where it comes to like the time of COVID and stuff like that, I used it as a time to hone a new skill. I used it as a time to really up my ante where it came to social media marketing, putting together our own advertising, understanding pay-per-click for Facebook, YouTube, all of that stuff. So I went back to school. I basically said, hey, I got a little bit of extra time. I started taking classes from Udemy. Udemy is great for understanding things that you don't really know much about. You can just look at the stars, find the good ones, and get hours of content for like $10. So I spent this time really learning a new skill and a new trade that now I don't have to pay somebody $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month to do. I can do myself.
That's great. So you were able to find a very niche market, especially as it relates to the Black fathers and kind of the male diaper bag, if you will, which I think is very important because as we've seen a lot of changes and being in the design world in restaurants and how, restrooms are configured and what that means. And, you have a lot of single fathers and stuff. So being able to tap into that market with a very unique product, kudos to you for that. Because, many people aren't really thinking about that, so to be able to step outside and create that niche is great.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say where it comes to small products, if you're going the products route and not necessarily services, you want to go where people aren't. Because once you go into a market that is saturated, it's much harder to get any share of that market. You're competing with a lot of people versus going into uncharted territory and starting a market almost. It's much easier to get a lot of share of that market. So something to consider for people who are considering going after products.
That's awesome. Great. So we're going to, in just the last couple of minutes that we have here, to all of our YouTube viewers, if you want to join us in the overflow, send an email to flowpresents@gmail.com. You can jump on and ask your questions to the panelists, just provide any comments that you have. So I think we'll have a couple of people that might be joining us here in a moment. And then panelists, before we wrap up, I'll just, give each of you the opportunity to kind of go around and say your last few points.
Yeah, I could jump out there. I say this often to my clients and sometimes just the people I'm talking to, and it goes back to what you said about like networking and getting out there. So anytime you're on a platform where there's people, use it as if it were happy hour. Respectfully put your information in, respectfully engage with the panel, write down names of people you want to get in touch with, go find them on LinkedIn, find them on Facebook. Because the reality is, my first time watching this was last Saturday, and then you probably saw a block of me. Like, oh, I was like, clack, 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 clack. So, I utilize platforms now where there are discussions happening with intelligent people, because that's the rooms I normally would go to if I was networking. So just be savvy about, what you do, how you do it. And for any new entrepreneurs out there, this is just another business hack when this COVID environment moves on. If you are looking for headshots or other things for social media platforms, the best thing you can do is go to a really big conference, get there super early, and while the photographers are getting their camera set up and everything, ask them for a headshot, tell them you're a new entrepreneur, and that you would be really appreciative if while they're, really getting all their photography equipment set up, they would use you as the model. And just tell them, it helped you out a lot. I got like 17 plus headshots as a result of doing that when I first got started in industry. And people thought it was like who in the world told you that? And it just was a people play. So that's it, no pitch. But I just wanted to give you all some business hacks, because it's hard when you start. It's extremely hard and it's expensive. And so anything you can do to really get out there and expand your marketplace, all these people talking today, somebody should be sending each one of these people a LinkedIn contact, or to contact the moderator to say, this is awesome, but get to know these people because they have big networks.
Great, thank you.
So parting piece of advice, I would say one of the 3 biggest lessons I've learned, and I'll just give this one, is be a person of action and get some data. So most people I know, man, they're eloquent. They'll give you reports and talk your ear off, and they don't do a thing. Be a person of action. If you start, fail, start, try, get some data. So I love hearing people talk about all this customer acquisition, and they've never done it. They've never really put their self out there. Like with us with products, man, look, you got to send something out to the market, get some feedback, see how it goes. Some might love it, some might hate it. All I can say is action. Whenever we have an idea, look, within 30 days, we have tried this joker. And, I'm very concerned with a lot of people who say they want to be entrepreneurs, and they've been talking about starting a business for the past year, 2 years, 10 years. You should probably just stay working for somebody. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you need to be a person of action. You got to immediately get out here and shoot your shot and try. So for anyone, my piece of advice, try. If it fails, try something else. You need the data. You wouldn't know if you didn't try. Don't overthink it. You don't need 10, 20 reports, 100-page business plan, none of that. Get your little outline, get yourself together, and try some stuff, get some data, and don't quit. That's
I also want to add to that, also stop trying to be perfect, because I think with me, like, I'm a perfectionist and I have to have everything right. Like even doing this this Zoom in the car bothered me.
In the middle of DC.
I was like, this is not gonna look good, but I mean, I want to spend time with my family and all that. So stop trying to be perfect and just connect with your audience. Like we go live on
Every
YouTube,
Monday.
Instagram, Facebook all the time, trying to connect with our audience, just like letting them get to know us. And once they get to know, like, and trust, I think Brent said that they will buy from you. And I think it's really important. Just connect with them, be yourself, and stop trying to be perfect and overthink everything. Just jump in and you will learn along the way. All your failures, like you learn from those and you get better. So
just to second that, right? Not to be long-winded. If you think about your iPhone, right? Or you think about Microsoft, they update these things all the time. You get to a certain level of quality, yes. But after that, put it out there. Do a update, come up with a patch for whatever is broken, but you got to get going. All this taking forever, trying to make sure everything is perfect, I'm telling you, the wave is going to completely pass you by, and you would be better off being happy at a 9 to 5 and free your mind. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be a person of action. Get going. Let's try. You know, I guarantee you, Gwen is going to tell you about some cases in some practice areas she's trying that she didn't try before. And before you know it, in another 2 years, she'll be super lawyer for that too. So shout out to Gwen. I already know how this goes. Try stuff. That's it. Thank you.
So I just want to go to Pierre here, who jumped on for the overflow. Pierre, you have a question or comment for the panelists? You're on mute. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you for all of you. It's great to see Black excellence, Black entrepreneurship, seeing people that have done it, that are doing it, that are making it happen, and learning from all you guys. I'm especially impressed by Mache, the Mache team. Mish, I'm sorry, Mish. My bad, guys. I wanted to ask you guys a question. Do you feel like there's ever a point at which one of you would ever go back to a 9 to 5? For example, you're scaling, you're doing things, you're building. Do you ever feel like you would transition your business structure at some point to do something a little different, or to remove yourself from being directly in the process, make it a little bit more passive? And what are your thoughts on pros and cons on that?
Okay, you asked a lot of things, my friend. If there's no way I'd go back and work for somebody. That's just because I know the numbers now and I see what kind of money you can make, and no one's going to pay me what we pay ourselves now. So no to that. That's a negative. And if you mean, would we possibly ever transition from directly running the business? That's a possibility. That happens often once you scale. And when a sign of you having an actual business is the ability for your business to function without you actually being hands-on. And when you get to that point, we're hiring right now and trying to put people in place so that we run less and less of our business directly, and we're more in a just complete management role. And I couldn't say that, in a few years, if things were really completely just like, hey, we can press play and plug someone else in, I wouldn't be opposed to having someone else run it.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you are actively looking for people to hire for your business, right?
Yeah, I had interviews all Friday.
Excellent. Well, I think you need to talk to Lindsay, who's a recruiter, so she can help find people for you guys. So, that's what we're trying to do. Just
Monday and Tuesday.
And make it work.
Cool.
Great. Lindsay, Shalyn, Marcia, Marlene, Gwen, any kind of other final comments, or is there anybody else from the overflow that wants to ask a question?
Sure. I wanted to say, I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. Dream big. Like, do not think that just because you're not where you are that you can't get to where you want to be. Dream big, but start small. With my other company that I had, I was, like I said, I'm a dreamer, and I went out and I went and rented out an office space, and I didn't need to do all that. And so I was able to learn from those mistakes from that other company when I started Alexander Recruiting. So just dream big, start small, support other Black-owned businesses as often as you can, whether you are investing in their business, buying some of their products, posting their information on your Instagram or your social media, like support them, like seriously support them. I post Black-owned businesses all the time. I'm going to support everyone that's on this panel because I believe in pushing us forward. Network. Even though it's really hard right now during COVID, find other avenues to network and just tap into that. And then I'll say this last thing, take a customer service course. Everybody that wants to be an entrepreneur thinks that they have great customer service, and sometimes they don't, and they don't know that they could improve their customer service. I took a Chick-fil-A customer service course. They actually have them out there. And I did that because I love Chick-fil-A customer service. So do that. And also, don't compare yourself to others. Don't look at their success and it's depressing. And that's not going to focus on your business and where you are. So, and pray. I mean, this is a spiritual, this is a spiritual flow is spiritual. So pray. I mean, I prayed. I got down on my knees, cried, begged God, like, God, I thought you said I was going to be great. You know, you're going to have trials. Like, this is no joke. Entrepreneurship is no joke. But believe in yourself and pray. You will make it. It's hard, but you can do it.
I'd like to pick up on something that Brent and Lindsay both said about networking, and also references back to a couple comments from the very beginning where a few people said that specifically they don't play golf. So I want to talk about the importance of networking. I think that that's a big, huge thing. It doesn't come naturally for me. I'm one of those introverted extroverts. And so just that whole going up and meeting people and sparking up conversations and exchanging cards is all very taxing. But golf, and I'm not a golfer, my husband's an avid golfer and makes so many connections on the golf course. And I actually did just this morning, had my first class of the year with a woman who is in support of other Black business. She was just hired as a golf pro at our golf and tennis club where our family goes. And she graduated from CUC back when it was CUC, before it was WAU. So it was a way to show support. My husband actually got me a pack of 5 lessons, and I've been saying every year, I'm going to get out, I'm going to get out, I'm going to get out. Just as a testimony to that, a year and a half ago, I went to a golf clinic. Our company was sponsoring it. So we gave them some product and went as sponsors, and I did a clinic and made a couple of really key relationships there, just from the clinic of, people, those of us who weren't that good at golf. One was at the Minority Supplier Development Council, and he's been really helpful in getting us some certifications since then. But also a really key meet was he put me with someone who had just started as a VP at First National Bank. So we met through the clinic, and
a Black banker
he
was interested in helping and supporting Black businesses.
Yeah, and he had left Wells Fargo and started at First National. And so we connected, stayed in touch over about a year and a half. And we were talking about leaving Wells Fargo at that point because we didn't have a banking relationship. I just had an account. And so we just started banking there. As it turns out, fast forward, COVID happens, PPP loans are out there. Wells Fargo wasn't even, they wouldn't give you the time of day, even though I've been banking there since the 90s, before there were Wells Fargo and there were Wachovia and beyond that. And reached out to David, who we had met, and he helped us to he really shepherded us through the PPP loan process. And so we were able to get a loan through his bank for actually 2 companies, because we had just acquired a company right before COVID.
Yeah, that's a timing thing where life happens. We had just acquired a company similar to ours who had been cut off and got by Staples and all of these folks they were partnered with. And we went live with them March 15th or 16th, right as COVID, and we had taken on their staff and their clients right before COVID.
Doubled our payroll right when people were laying people off. So it was crazy, but we ended up getting PPP loans for both companies through this connection from the golf course. So I'm going back next week for my second lesson.
And he's an avid supporter of Black business and really felt, and we feel strongly, and as he does, about businesses coming together and people networking and getting to share experiences.
So it's a chance to network and support, like you guys said previously.
Gwen?
Yes, I'm not on mute. I was just making sure, but yes, I was just thinking to myself, a couple of things in closing is to piggyback off of Lindsay and what everyone else said, think big. You want to have whatever you are opening. Obviously, one of the first things is being able to know every position within your business. So you know what it takes to be a receptionist, you know what it takes to, be a paralegal, you know what it takes to do every position within the law firm. So when you have, 7, 8 employees, as I do it, I'm still growing. I know exactly what it takes to do it and make your business grow. The second thing I would definitely, I would say in closing, is make sure you consult, if you are a business, an attorney, these Zoom, and them forms you find online oftentimes are not state specific. And this week, specifically this week in general, I've had so many calls of people who try to do stuff on their own. You signed what? You dissolved the partnership and then they sold the business and then what happened? And then the litigation of it costs so much more on the back end. Whereas sometimes we try to not, well, why didn't you consult an attorney? Well, I didn't have the money, or I forget I had a form online, and it's not holding up to par. And then later you're trying to save money and it costs you so much more in the long run. So I would definitely say, we all think that we can go to md.com and like be a doctor or go to Zoom and be a lawyer, but don't do it. Get your stuff, call your lawyer, and make sure your business is being done right. You don't want to work all this hard as we have to do as entrepreneurs, and then things, make a costly mistake that was very unnecessary. So that's all I have to say.
Great, thanks. And Shalon?
Yeah, I would say, first of all of the advice so far, I'm getting some from it. So thank you, everybody. But to touch on something I heard a little bit from Jonathan earlier, start, fail, start again, fail, right? In entrepreneurship, there really is no such thing as failure. Everything is a lesson learned, not failure. All these big companies that you see, and even companies like Amazon, you got to remember, Amazon used to be a book company to what it is today. So they technically failed, which they learned, and then pivoted into what they are today. So you got to get in there and start. A lot of people talk. When I say talk, they have these ideas. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's been 5 years, they've done nothing. It's been 10 years, they've done nothing. They're still talking about it. Until you get in there, jump in, even if it's with 50 cents, you're not an entrepreneur. You're just talking. Talking gets you nothing. So start. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's part of the deal. As you make mistakes, you'll learn what not to do next time. And because you only started with what you could start with and didn't take out some huge loan, you can survive and restart again with whatever little money you have. And then lastly, what I would say is, don't be scared to talk, especially where it comes to products. Because people know that I have products, they kind of want to get ideas from me. So they'll come and say, hey, I have this great idea. And when I hear that but, it makes me cringe. They say, I have a great idea, but I don't want to tell you because you might steal my idea. Let me tell you right now, for all of those people who are thinking like that, the amount of time and effort it takes to make an idea, a product or a service, and then to actually acquire customers and do a good job, nobody is stealing your idea. They're not staying up till 2, 3 a.m. in the morning to steal your idea. And if they do and they're successful, they deserve it, because that means they move faster than you did. Okay? So understand this. You have an idea, talk to people, because before somebody will steal your idea, they'll share your idea with somebody else that can do things for you. They will tell you, hey, I did something similar back in the day. Here's where you should start. Here, let me put you on with this person because this person knows about that. I've made so many connections just talking about my ideas. It's unbelievable. So if you have an idea, don't be afraid to share it and hold it close to the vest because you feel everybody's out there to steal your idea. Share your idea. Make sure you network with those people that said, hey, talk to such and such, actually call such and such. Start, actually do something. If that's writing one email today, do it. And don't be afraid to fail, because there is really no such thing. It's just a lesson to help you pivot and make that next goal.
Thank you. Everybody, thank you so, so much. I love seeing all of these beautiful Black faces, the Black excellence, these amazing companies out here, from Shalon with his, the father diaper bags and tote lunch bag, to Brett with, his investment academy, to Marcia and Marlene and their office supplies, Lindsay recruiting, Gwen Marie law firm, Michelle and Jonathan hair care beauty product line. I mean, you know, I think we've almost got every industry covered here. You know, you got a little bit of chemistry in there with the beauty products. You got some technology, all of that. So, you know, you guys are primed and ready just to kind of take over everything. So thank you all so much for joining. We'll make sure that we have all of your websites and everything up on our F.L.O.W pages, our Instagram page, our Facebook page, so that all of our viewers and everybody else that goes back to watch this video can come out and support the businesses that you're doing. You know, as F.L.O.W ourselves, we are also trying to do a little entrepreneurship in ourselves, but it's also in terms of investing back into our community and helping out schools. So we have a F.L.O.W t-shirt that you all can see here on the screen. The t-shirt is $20. We asked the different panelists to be able to invest and buy a t-shirt. The proceeds for this are going to go to providing snacks and lunches to children as they kind of transition back into school. So again, thank you all so much for joining. We're so happy to have you here with us today. And to all of our viewers, we'll see you in about a week or two for our next F.L.O.W Presents. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.